tell you this quietly, just the way it happened, with no meaning to it, no explanation, because I have no explanation for you, and I still don't, even now. They dropped me off at a remote logging plot at the end of November, alone, at an old trapper's cabin that no one had heated in years. It was work. Watch over the plot until the first real snow, take my measurements, mark what needed marking. Nothing hard. The helicopter lifted off, the beat of its blades melting away somewhere behind the hills, and it went so quiet, the way it only ever goes quiet in the taiga in winter, when even the birds have already flown and the frost hasn't truly set in yet. That silence isn't empty, it's thick. It presses on your ears, soft, like water, and after an hour, you start to hear your own blood. In a silence like that, I caught myself breathing slowly, very slowly, a long, slow breath in and a long, quiet breath out, as if the taiga itself were teaching you to breathe its way in its own vast, unhurried time. And you don't argue. The cabin was small, black with age, sunk down into the ground. One room, a small iron wood stove, a plank bunk against the wall, a table, a window no bigger than 2 hands. The door was low and heavy, built of thick-hewn timber, with a wooden bar for a latch that you lay across it. Like so. And it drops into 2 notches cut straight into the door frame. Someone, a very long time ago, had built this place in earnest, to last, for himself. I didn't think about that then. I was thinking about firewood, about tea, about getting my felt boots to dry out. The first evening was an ordinary one. I heated the place, ate, listened to the pine crackle and hiss its sap in the stove, to the wind feeling its way around the corners of the cabin and moving on, deeper into the woods. The snow hadn't really fallen yet, only dusted the ground in a layer thin as flour. And in that first snow, you could hear everything. Every step of an animal, every twig snapping under a paw, the forest talking to itself, the way it always does. I lay there under that talk, listening to the stove, and my breathing slowed on its own, in and a slow breath out. In, and the pauses between grew longer and longer. And on one of those long, warm breaths out, I drifted off to sleep, easy, the way you do when you're a child. I woke in the middle of the night because it had gone quiet. Not from a sound, from the silence. The forest had fallen still. All of it, all at once, as if someone had covered it with the palm of a hand. I lay there listening to that new silence, and I had to lie there a long, long time before I heard it. Outside, on the frozen crust of the snow, something was walking. Slowly, heavily. Crunch, pause, crunch, pause. That's how a man walks when he's in no hurry at all. That's how something walks when it knows it has nowhere to rush to. A bear, I thought. A bear roused from its winter sleep. It happens. It's dangerous, but it makes sense. I lay and listened, and the steps went once around the cabin, one full circle, and moved off into the woods, and the forest began to talk again, and I convinced myself it was an animal, and I fell back asleep, because it is very easy for a man to convince himself of the thing he wants to believe. In the morning, I went out and walked around the cabin. The snow all around was clean, smooth, untouched, and only on the north side, where the wall has no window, there was a track, a single line of prints running clean around in a circle. I bent over them and looked for a long time, and the longer I looked, the less I understood. They were deep, as if left under a great weight. But they weren't a bear's, or an elk's, or a man's. They weren't anyone's. Just hollows pressed into the snow, round, even, spaced the same distance apart, going around my home in a circle, and breaking off right where they began at the blind north wall, as if whatever had walked there had simply stopped being. I told myself I didn't know how to read tracks. That was true. I worked all day, measuring, marking, and I tried not to look to the north, and by evening I had almost forgotten. Almost. The second night, I heated the stove longer than usual and laid the bar down tighter in its notches. And when I lay down, I made myself breathe the same way I had the night before. Slow, even, a long breath in and a long breath out, coaxing my body into believing everything was as it always was, that there was nothing to fear, that my breathing would carry me off to sleep on its own if only I let it. And it almost did. And again, I woke in the silence. And again, crunch, pause, crunch, around in a circle, only closer now. Now I could hear more than the steps. I could hear breathing, steady, calm, deep breathing right against the wall, a hand's width from my head, with a single log between us. Something was standing out there, in the dark, in the frost, and breathing, in no hurry, as if warming itself on the heat that was leaking through the wall out of my cabin. And that was when I understood the worst of it. It was breathing in my rhythm. A long breath in and a long breath out. That same slow rhythm I had rocked myself to sleep with a minute before. It was breathing exactly like that, out there, past the log, right by my head. And I didn't know whether it had matched itself to me, or whether it was I who, without ever noticing, had spent the whole evening breathing in time with it. I lay there, not moving, and tried to breathe without a sound, out of step, to break that shared rhythm. And I couldn't. My body wouldn't obey. My body wanted to breathe along with it, long and even, in and out. Though how was I to know it thought about anything at all the way we do? It went around the cabin, once, again, and then it stopped at the door, and I heard something touch the bar, not forcing it, not striking it, trying it, softly, carefully, thoughtfully, the way you handle a thing you want to understand. The wood creaked in its notches, quietly, lifting, a finger's width, then two. Someone outside was raising my latch, knowing that the bar had to be lifted, knowing how this door opened, knowing that between a lifted bar and a door swung wide there is nothing but a single motion. A bear forces. A bear strikes and tears. A bear doesn't know what a latch is. But this knew. I don't remember whether I got up. I don't think I could get up. I lay and stared into the dark, toward where the door was, and listened to the bar lifting, holding still, and slowly, very slowly, settling back down into its notches, with its own dry, wooden knock. And the breathing drew away from the door, and the steps went around the cabin one more time, calm, unhurried, as if nothing had happened at all, and moved off into the woods. And the forest began to talk. And I sat on the bunk until morning with my hand on the bar. Though I already knew that if it wanted in, the bar was no obstacle to it. It had only been trying, after all. It could have come in on any one of those nights. And it hadn't. And that was the worst of it. Not that it was forcing its way in, but that it wasn't in any hurry. That it had time. That it would come back not because it was hungry, but because it was curious. In the morning, I called for the helicopter 2 days ahead of schedule. I said over the radio that I'd finished the work. That wasn't true. I hadn't finished the work. While I waited, I didn't sleep at all. I sat on the threshold in the daytime, in the sun, in the frost, and looked at the forest. And the forest looked back at me, calm, black, endless, and gave away nothing. The helicopter came in the gray dusk. I climbed in without looking back, and we lifted off, and the taiga fell away below us, huge, flat, quiet to the very edge of the earth, and somewhere down there was left a small black cabin with a wooden bar across its door. And I never did learn who it was that stood by the wall that night, a hand's width from my head, and breathed in time with me and was learning to open my door. Sometimes in winter, in the quiet, I catch myself breathing slow and even, a long, slow breath in and a long breath out. Crunch, pause, crunch, and I listen, just in case, just so I'll be the first to hear it. These letters were not found at once. They were found much later, in a tin tea caddy at a lighthouse where each autumn, for a few weeks, they would send out a single keeper to watch over the light until the late navigation season closed. He wrote the letters to his wife, home, to the shore, but never sent a single one. The supply boat came seldom, and by the end of autumn the sea rose so high that even the boat did not always get through. I will read them to you in order as they lay, and you listen slowly, because he wrote them slowly too, in the silence, under one and the same sound, which you will soon hear as well. The first. My dearest, here I am then at my post. The lighthouse stands on a bare little island of stone, everything gray, the stone gray, the sky gray, the water gray, and you cannot tell where the one ends and the next begins. Below, always, the sea, a wave, the drawback, a wave, the drawback, even, tireless, like someone's breathing that will never once falter. And when the fog comes down, and it comes down here every evening, the foghorn starts up. You should hear it, my dearest. Low, long, with the whole chest of the island behind it. Ooh. Then a pause. Then, ooh again. It isn't for me, it's for those out at sea, so they won't run onto the rocks in their blindness. But I am alone here. There are no ships. And so it sounds as though it calls out for nothing, into the fog, to itself. The first evening it frightened me. Now it's nothing. A wave in the horn, a wave in the horn. One sleeps well beneath them. I hold you close. I'll be home soon. The second, 4 days later. My dearest, the work here is simple, only lonely. In the evening I climb up, light the lamp, watch that it burns even, and toward morning I put it out. And I write it all down in the log, the hour, the weather, what I saw. A trifling business. But here is what I want to tell you, and don't you laugh. I sat down this evening to fill in the log for the day. I open it, and it is already written. In my own hand, my handwriting, my letters, everything just as I write it, even my little flourish on the D. The whole day set down, hour by hour, neat. And I don't remember writing it. Do you understand? I sat down to write for the first time that day, and it was all already done, before me, by me. I must have been worn out from the journey and wrote it in the morning, and by evening forgot. That happens from weariness and solitude, I've heard. I'm going to bed. A wave in the horn. Good night, my dearest. The 3rd, 3 days later still. My dearest, I'm writing to you and my hand trembles. Forgive the writing. Today, this is what happened. It grew dark, the fog fell, the foghorn started up. Hoo. Then a pause, then hoo again. And I, as always, took the matches and went up to light the lamp. I climbed the spiral stair, and up above, it's already bright. The lamp is burning, even, warm, just as I light it myself. And I'm on my way up to light it, the matches in my fist. Someone lit it before me. I am alone on the island, my dearest. Do you hear? Alone. The boat was here a week ago and won't come again for another week at least. There is no one. And the lamp is burning. And you know what's worst of all? I stood on the stair, and up the steps ahead of me, going up, ran wet boot prints. Big ones, wet with seawater, leading upward ahead of me. And I stood below, and my own boots were dry. Someone in wet boots had climbed up to the lamp before me and lit it. I want to come home, my dearest, but the boat won't come soon. The 4th. The date smudged, as though written on something wet. My dearest, I have seen him. I'm writing to you, and I don't believe it myself, but I saw him. This evening, I went out onto the gallery that runs around the outside of the tower, just beneath the lantern. Went out for a breath of air, because the room had grown close on me from all my thinking. I stand, holding the cold railing, below me the sea, a wave, the drawback, a wave, and fog all round, like milk, and the foghorn sounding. Hoo, then a pause, then hoo again. And there, in that fog, on the gallery, on the far side of the lantern, a man is standing, his back to me, in my oilskin, holding the railing just as I do, with one hand, and tilting his head to the side, listening to the horn, just exactly the way I do it. You know that habit of mine. I called out. He didn't turn. He walked slowly off along the gallery, away into the fog, with that very step I have when I'm tired, dragging his left leg a little, the one I chilled to the bone as a boy. You alone know about that leg, my dearest. And he knows it too. I did not go after him. I locked the door, though what good is it to lock a door against the one who lights the lamp without matches? The 5th. The hand steady, too steady. My dearest, I am calmer now. For a long time I couldn't sleep, and now I sleep well. I think I've understood what is happening, and understood that there's nothing to fear. He means me no harm. He simply does my work. He lights the lamp when I am tired. He keeps the log when it's hard for me to write. He goes out to listen to the horn in my place. He even walks as I do, with the same leg. He manages better than I do, my dearest. I'll say it honestly. Better. His lamp burns more even. The letters in the log stand firmer than mine. The sea below is all the same. A wave. The drawback. A wave. And the horn. Hoo. Then a pause. Then hoo again. I've begun to muddle where I am standing and where he is standing. Sometimes I write to you, and I can't tell whether it's my own hand forming the letters or his, because the writing has gone a little not mine. Look closely afterward, my love. Look closely at this page and at the first. They're two different hands, aren't they? I must come home, while I still remember that I must come home. And the last. At the foot of the page, in haste, the boat. The supply boat is coming. I see its light in the fog. It has broken through. It's coming for me. My dearest, I'm going down. I won't wait for morning. I won't put out the lamp. I won't finish the log. Let him put it out. Let him finish it. It's for him to stay. I'm taking only this box of letters and going down to the water. Quick, down the stair, past the wet prints, to the landing. I'm leaving whole, do you hear? Whole, having lost nothing. I'll break free. I, of all people, will break free from here, and I'll come to you and hold you and tell you everything myself, in a living voice, not in letters. A wave, the drawback. Quick, the boat is already at the rocks. Here the letters end. After that, only one thing is known, what the deckhand from that boat told, that they came up to the lighthouse in the fog, beneath the moan of the foghorn. Whoo. Then a pause. Then whoo again. And that, on the landing, the keeper stood, waiting for them. Calm. A tin box under his arm. He stepped into the boat, said his hellos, said he was glad of people after so many weeks alone with the sea. And the whole way back to shore he sat straight, looking ahead into the fog, and tilted his head a little to the side whenever, from behind, from the receding island, the horn still carried across the water. A good man, the deckhand said, a calm man. Only on the shore, as he stepped down onto the boards of the pier, he dragged his left leg a little and looked back just once at the lighthouse, where up above the lamp still burned and burned, the lamp he had not put out. And he smiled at it, as at his own. And the letters he gave them up himself, asked that they be passed to his wife, and so they reached her, much later. And she read them the whole night through, all 6, in order, and kept looking closely at the last pages, at the handwriting, and at the one who had come back to her from the sea, whole and unharmed, having lost nothing. At him, too, she looked closely, for a long time, in silence. A wave, the drawback, a wave. Хэштег смета. Денег не тратит. Python 3 shared /tts /lumian _tts.py channels /2-dark-lullaby /video-3 /scripts k2-ep9 -перевал -11 labs -chunks.md префикс перевал --limit 1 хэш. Генерация. Нужны --yes и потолок токенов. Python 3 shared /tts /lumian _tts.py channels /2-dark-lullaby /video-3 /scripts k2-ep9 -перевал -11 labs -chunks.md префикс перевал \mode generate -yes -max -tokens 60,000 хэш склейка ./shared /tts /assemble.sh channels /2-dark-lullaby -video-3 /audio перевал -full.mp 3.0.9. There were 5 of us when we climbed up to the pass, and we came down. We came down differently, each of us. And it's that difference I want to tell you about. Quietly, in no hurry, because there is nothing here to frighten you with. There was no beast at our backs, no voice out of the fog, no stranger's shadow beside our own. Nothing like that. There were only the mountains and the wind and the light. A low, amber evening light that one day caught on the ridge and would not move again. And that is the whole story. The light caught fast, and we did not notice it at first. It was late autumn, that time of year when the mountains already smell of winter, when the wind on the crest cuts dry and mean, and the first snow lies in the shadow under the stones while it still melts in the sun. We were a party of surveyors, 5 of us. Nikolai Petrovich, the chief, an old man already, his beard gone gray in places. Grisha, Semyon, Fedya, the youngest, not yet 20, and me. Our work was a simple, dull sort of work, to cross over the ridge, from one valley into the next, and mark out where a trail would one day run. Half a day's walk, Nikolai Petrovich told us. We'd climb up in the morning and be down the far side by evening. Bring a day's food, he said. We'll be at the bottom by nightfall, by the fire. A day's food. You hear that? We took food for one single day. And so we came out onto the saddle, onto the pass itself. And I have remembered those 2 sounds all my life. I hear them still, the moment I close my eyes. A boot comes down on the scree, and the gravel crunches under it, slides, one small stone knocking against another. A crunch. You lift your foot, you set it down, a pause, and a crunch again. And over all of it, the wind's thin whistle along the ridge, steady, without beginning or end, drawing out its one long note over the crest. A crunch, a pause, a crunch, and the whistle. 5 pairs of boots out of step over the scree, and the wind. It is good to think your own thoughts to a sound like that. To a sound like that, the legs walk on their own. And walk we did. And above us stood the sun, low, right at the edge of the ridge, orange like a cooling ember. An evening sun. Beautiful. We walked for an hour. We walked, perhaps, for 2. A crunch, a pause, a crunch, and the wind's thin whistle along the ridge. And at some point, Semyon lifted his head and said, "How is it the sun isn't going down?" We all looked up, and it was true. The sun stood exactly where it had been when we first stepped onto the saddle, right at the edge of the ridge, orange, at the very same height. It had not risen, had not dropped so much as a finger's width, and we had been walking a long while by then. It should have been sinking towards sunset or going somewhere, anywhere. But it stood there, the sun stuck on the ridge, and the clouds around it stood still too, even and amber, lit from within by that one motionless light. Well, we laughed it off. Autumn, mountains, we said. It's a trick of the eye. Up here you can never tell where the thing sets. And we walked on. A crunch, a pause, a crunch. And Nikolai Petrovich took out his watch. He had an old watch on a chain, and he looked after it. He glanced at it and frowned. 12 o'clock, he says. Noon. And Grisha says to him, "Noon, Petrovich? It's 4:45 on mine already. It's evening." And Semyon pulls out his own. "And mine," he says 8:30. And there we stand on the saddle, the 5 of us, in the wind, and each man has his own time on his wrist, and no two of them agree. And above us the sun does not move. That was when it went quiet. I remember it. The wind still whistled, but inside us, quiet, as though the air had gone out of all of us at once. Nikolai Petrovich said, "We walk, we don't stand. Down to the far side, and we'll make sense of it there." And we went faster. Crunch, 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 crunch. No pauses now, hurrying down the scree. But the descent came no closer. The far edge of the valley we were heading for, that dark, jagged line ahead in the clouds, it stayed right where it was, however long we walked toward it. Like the sun, right in the same place. And we grew tired. The wind blows the warmth out of you. Your feet slide on the scree. Every step has to be set down with effort. A crunch. Careful. A crunch. And Fedya, the young one, said, "Let's stop. Let's put up the tent, eat something, rest a little. My legs won't carry me." And it was such an understandable thing, such a human thing, to get out of the wind, to stretch the tent between the stones, to unwrap the bundle, to choose some bread and fat, that we stopped, all 5 of us. And that, I know now, was our mistake, the great one. Because on that pass, you must never sit down. We ate. We had brought a day's bread, and we ate nearly half of it, I think. We were that hungry. We sat in the tent, listened to the wind, said nothing. The light would not move. We crawled out, walked on. Soon we were tired again, put up the tent again, ate again, and struck it again, and stopped again, and again. And so the food, which had been a day's worth, ran out. All of it. To the last crumb we shook out the sacks. And the light over the ridge stood just the same, evening, amber even, as though we had not been up here an hour, as though we had only just climbed. Do you understand what that means? By the sun above us, one long, one endless evening, one single evening. But by our empty stomachs, by the leaden weariness in our legs, by the emptied sacks, many, many days had passed, as though we had lived a whole week inside one evening that would not end. And the longer we walked, the more terrible that mismatch became. The body lived by its own clock, and the sky by its own, and the two had come apart, and we were caught somewhere in the crack between them, on the bare ridge, under a motionless sun. And then Grisha looked at Fedya and said quietly, "Fedya, you've grown a beard." Fedya had barely grown stubble before, a boy still, and now he sits there in front of us, with a beard. Not stubble, a beard, grown out, a finger long, soft, a young man's beard. In one evening, while we put the tent up and took it down and ate our bread, and Fedya touched it, touched his own beard, and began to cry, quietly like that. And we looked away, because it was not a thing you could look at. It was impossible to look at, and not one of us said a word, because there were no words. What is there to say? A beard grows. That means time is passing. Passing somewhere, apart from us, apart from this stuck light. Passing, while we stand still. And then Nikolai Petrovich stood up, slowly, heavily, and he said, "That's enough. No one sits down anymore. No one. Not for a minute. Leave the tent. Whatever happens, however your legs give out, we walk. While we walk, we're alive. Sit down, and we stay here forever, in this evening. You hear me? Don't sit down." And we stood up, and we walked, and we did not sit down again, not to eat because there was nothing to eat, not to rest, not to shelter from the wind. We just walked and walked, holding on to one another so as not to lose each other on the scree, and underfoot a crunch, a pause, a crunch, and overhead the stuck orange sun and the wind's thin whistle along the ridge. How long we walked like that, I couldn't say. By the sun, the same evening still. But we walked and walked and went gray as we went. Simeon was the first to give out. He sat down on the stone, said, "Just a minute, only a minute." And Nikolai Petrovich roared at him, hauled him up by force, dragged him by the collar. And we walked. And suddenly, the gravel under the boot ran out. It went level. Grass began. We had come down off the scree into the valley. And ahead, a settlement, lights, our own people, waiting. I'll tell you what came after. I'll tell it briefly, because here my voice always gives out. They were waiting for us below, only they had been waiting a long time. On the far side of the pass, in the world where the sun crosses the sky the way it should, not half a day had passed. Years had passed. They had searched for us, then held our funeral, then stopped remembering us at all. And so we came down off the ridge, the 5 of us. But Simeon, who had been 10 years younger than me, he came out an old man, gray, bent, his hands shaking. And Fedya, young Fedya with his grown-out beard. Fedya had not aged a single day. As he had climbed up, so he came down, a boy. And one of us came out exactly right, as though half a day really had gone by. The pass measured out its own to each of us, and no one knows by what reckoning. Nikolai Petrovich never wound that watch of his again, and now I am the only one left who was up there, the only one. The others are gone, some caught up by the years, some by the years they had missed, and there is no one left to remember how it was. Only me, an old man who came down out of an evening that lasted one single day and a whole lifetime at once. And here's why I am telling you all of this. Not to frighten you. I told you, there is nothing here to frighten you with. But so that you'll know, so you'll remember. If you ever have to cross a pass, by a trail or with no trail, in autumn, in the wind, in low cloud, and you suddenly notice that the sun has stuck on the ridge, that the low evening light neither fades nor moves however long you walk, and your watch shows the wrong time, then listen to me, to an old man. Don't sit down. However tired your legs, however much you long to stop, to shelter from the wind, to put up the tent, to eat, to wait it out, don't sit down. Don't trust your watch. Up there they all lie, every one of them. Don't wait for the light to move. It will not move. It is waiting you out. Just walk. Walk and walk. A crunch, a pause, a crunch. Step after step. Hold on to the one beside you and don't stop. While you are walking, time walks with you. But sit down, and it goes on without you. And the sun above you will not move, and it will go quiet, only the wind. And there will be a warm, even, amber evening on the ridge that will never, never end. This is a daytime story, deliberately a daytime one, told in broad daylight, because the thing I want to tell you about didn't happen at night. At night it isn't frightening. The fear comes at noon, at the whitest, stillest noon, when the sun climbs to the very top of the sky and stands there, not moving, as though it's been jammed in place, and the shadow beneath you shrinks to a little black puddle right at your feet, and there's no getting away from it. Every summer they used to send me out to my grandmother, in a village that it was already shameful to call a village at all. 5 households still lived in, maybe, the rest with boarded-up windows, caved-in roofs, nettles grown tall as a man where the entryway once stood. The old people were living out their last years. The young had long since gone, and in summer, the village died away altogether, especially at noon. In the morning you could still hear it, a bucket clanking somewhere, a rooster somewhere, some old woman scolding another across the wattle fence. But as noon drew near, as the sun rose to the top of the sky, everything went still. The livestock were driven into the shade. People withdrew into their houses, lay down, pulled the shutters to, and the village would seem to die away until evening. Only the heat standing over the garden plots and the ringing. It's that ringing I want you to hear, because it's still in my ears to this day. At noon, in the heat, a thin, steady ringing rises up. Maybe cicadas in the grass, maybe the blood in your temples, maybe the very air ringing because it's been heated white. You can't tell. It's even, with no beginning and no end. It hangs over the field like a heat haze, and after a while, you stop being able to tell whether it's outside you or already inside you. My grandmother used to say, "That's noon ringing." Noon, she'd say, is alive, and it has a mistress. She told me about the mistress just once, and never said it again. But once was enough for me. We were sitting in the shade, shelling peas. It was getting on toward noon, and I was about to run off past the gardens, out into the field where the rye grew. And my grandmother took me by the hand, not hard, just the way you take someone when you want them to remember, and said quietly, "Don't go into the field at noon, child. When the sun is at the very top of the sky, don't go. At noon, Lady Midday walks the field, a woman in white, tall, thin, white all over, white through and through, and you can't make out her face because the light comes off her the way it comes off the sun, and your eyes water. She walks along the rye, along the very tips of the ears, without ever bending them, and whoever she meets in the field at noon, she draws them in. She'll come and stand behind you and ask. She'll set you a riddle, or ask about the flax, about the spinning, or she'll simply ask, and you answer. As long as you're answering, you keep walking. Fall silent, lose your thread, turn to look at her, and that's it. She's taken you. Some she strikes down with the sun. Some she turns in circles till they can't find the road 3 steps from their own house. And some she leads away for good, and they're never found again. That's what she said, and she added, "The main thing, child, don't turn around to her. Whatever she says, look down at your own shadow and walk, and don't turn around." I was a boy, 10 years old or so, and with me was Sashka, my little brother. He was 7. And you know how it is with boys. Tell them not to go somewhere, and that's the very place that pulls at them. It wasn't that I didn't believe my grandmother. I did believe her. But I was the elder, I was brave, and the rye past the garden stood golden and high, and in it I knew there was a path to the pond. And one day in July, in the worst of the heat, when my grandmother had dozed off in the shade and the whole village lay still, I took Sashka by the hand and led him out into the field. At noon, when the sun was at the very top of the sky. And here's what I remember about that field. It was small, you understand? A tiny field. I knew it by heart. I'd run across it 100 times. You could see 3 of its edges at once. The village here, the pond there, the tree line there. There was no getting lost in it. There was nothing to get lost in. And all the same, we walked, and walked along the path. The rye standing like a wall, higher than Sashka's head. The ears rubbing against one another with a dry sort of rustle. And the ringing hung over it all. That same ringing, even, thin, all on one note. And the sun bore down on the crown of my head, and my shadow lay right beneath me, short and black. And for some reason, I kept looking at it, at my own shadow, just as my grandmother had told me to, though nothing had happened yet. And then I noticed we'd been walking too long. The pond should have been right here by now. 3 minutes walk. But we walked and walked, and the rye didn't end. And the path seemed the same, and yet it seemed to whine. And the sun at the top of the sky, and the ringing coming closer. And it was so hot there was nothing to breathe. The air thick as soup, and white spots swam in my eyes from the light. Sashka held my hand from behind and said nothing, and I was about to say, "Let's go back," when I realized I no longer knew where back was. Rye on every side, and the ringing. And then the shadow fell. You understand, the sun was at the top of the sky. At noon, the shadows are short, right at your feet. But this one fell long. Across us both, across the path, on ahead, thin and drawn out. The shadow of someone standing behind us, between us and the sun. Someone tall and thin. And I stood there, looking at that shadow on the ground in front of me, and understood that there was no one behind us. There couldn't be. We'd walked out alone. But the shadow was there. A shadow with no one to cast it. A stranger's shadow, thin, and it stood right at our backs and did not move. And then, from behind us, out of the very ringing, something asked, very softly. I don't remember the words. That's the strange part. I don't remember what it asked. The voice was quiet, tender, a woman's, and it seemed to come from everywhere at once, from the rye, from the heat, from the ringing in my ears. And I remembered my grandmother. Answer while you walk. Don't turn around. Look at your own shadow and walk. And I began to answer. I answered whatever came. Yes, no, I don't know. Anything not to fall silent. Anything to take it step by step. And I squeezed Sashka's hand with all my strength and walked on, looking down at my own short shadow past that other long one. And it came after us, asking, tenderly, patiently, in no hurry. It had nowhere to be. Noon is long. Noon stands still. It has nowhere to hurry to. And Sashka turned around. I didn't catch it. I was gripping his hand so hard, staring so hard at my own feet that I didn't catch him lifting his head. He was only 7. Someone called to him tenderly, so he turned to look, to see who was calling so tenderly. I only felt his little hand go suddenly limp in mine, go quiet. And he stopped. And then I did the one thing I am at once proud of and will never forgive myself for. I did not turn around. I did not look at what he was looking at. I yanked him by the hand and walked on, looking down at the shadow, and dragged him along behind me, limp and silent. And I answered into the emptiness, God knows what. And suddenly the ride ended. It simply ended. And there was the pond, and there was the village, 3 steps away, where it had been the whole time. And the ringing cut off all at once, and the sun moved off the top of the sky. I dragged Sashka home. He was white all over, his lips gray, his eyes open but not seeing. Sunstroke, they said. They got water into him, packed him in wet cloths, brought him round. He lived. He didn't stay in that field. He wasn't led away. He wasn't found later in the tree line. No, he came home with me that same day, alive. Only not all of him. That's what I came to understand only later, many years on, when I'd grown old myself and learned to call things by their real names. Sashka didn't come back whole. He'd been a quiet one before, but after that noon, he went quiet altogether. He did poorly at school, made few friends, always seemed to be listening for something the rest of us couldn't hear. He married, never had children, worked as a watchman, died young, not yet 40. And all his life he couldn't bear summer, couldn't bear noon. As soon as the sun rose to the top of the sky, as soon as the ringing rose over the field, he'd go pale and withdraw into the house, into the shade, and pull the shutters to. He remembered nothing. I'd ask him. I don't remember anything, he'd say, just a field, only a field. And yet at noon he hid himself away. He saw something there behind my back when he turned around, something she showed him or asked him, and he didn't answer because he was little, 7 years old. And she took it. Not all of it, half. The half a person feels his joy with, the half that makes him warm, and the other half she left to live out its years. I didn't keep him safe. I was told, don't go, and I went, and I took the little one with me, and I didn't watch over him. And the fact that I'm whole myself, that I'm sitting here telling you this, it isn't because I was brave. It's only because I didn't turn around. I looked down at my own shadow and walked. That's all the credit I can take. I didn't turn around, and he did. And in that lies the whole difference between us. I'm old now, and I love the shade, and I can't bear noon, just like Sashka toward the end. As soon as the sun stands at the very top of the sky, as soon as that thin, even ringing rises over the earth, I go into the house. I sit in the cool, and I look at my own shadow on the floor, short and black, and I don't turn around, even at home, even when I know for certain there's no one behind me. I'm afraid that I'll turn, and there, beside my short one, a second shadow will lie, long and not mine. I'm afraid that out of the ringing, something will softly ask me something again, and I'm old now and tired, and one day I won't hold out. I'll turn around and answer. Have you ever noticed how well you sleep when somebody in the house is still awake? You lie there in the dark, and from the other side of the wall, there's a narrow strip of light under the door. Somebody's quiet footsteps. A mug set down on a table. A page turning. And you sleep sounder for it than you ever would in complete silence. Because someone is keeping awake in your stead. It's a very old thought, and a very warm one. Everyone who was ever put to bed as a child knows it. Lie still now and listen. I'll tell you about one winter at a research station in the Arctic, where we remembered that warm thought every night. The station stood on a headland, right at the edge of the fast ice, and it was a small one. 2 living huts, the generator shed, a store hut, the radio mast with its guy wires, and the path between it all, forever drifted over, that we dug out with shovels every morning. If you can call it morning, the hour when it's simply time to get up. It was the polar night. It's a long one in those parts, and a steady one, and it promises nothing. The sun had gone in November and was due back in February, and until then, there was darkness, blowing snow, blue drifts in the light of the lamp over the porch, and the low drone of the generator behind the wall that never stopped for a minute. There were 6 of us. Guriev, the station chief, no longer young, who never once raised his voice. Senya, the radio operator, the youngest of us, his first winter. Bakomov, who ran the generator, and then the doctor, and the cook. Everybody called him Uncle Kostya, though he was no older than me. And me. 4 hours flying to the mainland, weather permitting, and there had been no flying weather since December. The first verse. Sleep, my little one, the night is long. The blizzard walks round about, but it won't touch you yet. The stove is lit, the door is barred. Someone is always awake, and you sleep till the morning. Senya was the first to hear her. He was standing his watch at the receiver, as he was meant to, headphones on, and at 3:20 he called me over. Not frightened, but with that childish delight people have when they pick up a distant station. Between our 2 working frequencies, where there's usually nothing but hiss and crackle, somebody was singing softly. A woman's voice, not a young one, plain, no music behind it, a little off-key, the way people sing not for a recording, but for one person who's lying beside them. The 2 of us listened with our heads bent to the speaker, and we were smiling because it was good. You have to understand, by the 4th month of the polar night, it isn't even the sun you miss. It's the ordinary human thing. The voice sang its 4 lines through, went quiet, and the even hiss came back over the air. Senya wrote down the time. We decided it was somebody's amateur transmitter, or a bounce off the mainland, or somebody at the next station along playing about, holding a tape recorder up to a microphone. Senya stayed on watch till morning, and I went to bed sometime after 3 and fell asleep, I think, on the stairs. The second verse. Sleep, my little one. I'll put out the light. I'll listen to the blizzard and sing with it all night. Don't you get up to see who has come. Someone is always awake, and you sleep till the morning. The next night, at 3:20 again, she sang 2 verses. First the one from the night before, word for word, and then one more, a new one. We were expecting her by then. We gathered in the radio room and stood about in our quilted jackets with our mugs, and it was almost cozy, like a program the whole station listens to together. Uncle Kostya said his grandmother used to sing like that, only the words were different. Guriev listened, nodded, and went off to bed. That sort of thing left him cold. We turned in after him, and Senya didn't stay on watch that night. He shut up the radio room, the pilot lamp went out, and for the first time that winter, the whole station was asleep. And in the morning, Pakhomov wasn't there. You understand, not gone out and not lost. Simply not there. His sleeping bag lay open, the way you leave it when you're coming straight back. His fur boots stood by the bunk. His quilted jacket hung on its nail. His watch was ticking on the shelf. The door was hooked shut from the inside, the way we always hooked it against the wind. We went round the station with torches, went round it again, called out into the dark, shone the light off towards the fast ice.
The blizzard was blowing steady and thick, and by morning it smooths everything flat, and the snow by the porch lay exactly as we had dug it out the day before. The generator was running on its own, without him. Guriev told us to write in a log that the engineman was missing and to radio the mainland. The mainland answered that there'd be no plane, the weather. The third verse. Sleep, my little one. The snow has come down. The path to your door is drifted and gone. The one who went out has a hard road back. Someone is always awake, and you sleep till the morning. That night we switched the receiver off. Senya suggested it himself in the evening, and Guriev allowed it. Not because he believed anything, but because people need something to do. The switch clicked, the pilot lamp went out, and the radio room went dead. And we heard her all the same at 3:20. Not out of the speaker. She was coming from somewhere behind the wall, out of the ventilation, from under the floor, out of the blizzard itself. The way you hear a radio at the neighbors. You can hardly make out the words, but you know the tune at once, and your head finishes it for you. 3 verses, the same 2, word for word, and a third. Nobody got up. I lay there thinking I ought to get up and wake the others, and kept putting it off. And it was so warm, and I was so lazy, the way you only ever are as a child under a blanket. And in the morning, Eileen, the doctor, wasn't there. His bunk was the one by the stove, the warmest on the station. His sleeping bag open, his glasses on the stool, lying with their arms up. The 4th verse. Sleep, my little one, the house is still. I'll not make your floorboard creak. Your hands are warm and mine are cold. Someone is always awake. And you sleep till the morning. That night I didn't sleep. Not out of fear. The generator had started to misfire and we had no engine man anymore. So I sat in the generator shed on a crate with the radio headphones on so as not to go deaf from the noise. And every quarter of an hour I pumped the fuel through by hand, the way Pahomov had shown me back in December. At 3:20, she began to sing 4 verses, the 3 from before, word for word, and a new one. I sat there working the lever and listening, and I'll tell you honestly, it felt good. She sang evenly, never forcing it, a little off-key, the way you sing to someone who is lying beside you and is nearly asleep already. I sat it out to the end of the shift, and in the morning, everyone was there. Everyone who was left. Guriev, Senya, Uncle Kostya. I mentioned it at breakfast, in passing, and nobody made anything of it. We still thought back then that it was something to do with the receiver, with the mast, with the frequency, with something made of iron. The 5th verse. Sleep, my little one, the blizzard and me, 2 of us awake, and the house stands empty. What I've not finished singing, I'll finish another time. Someone is always awake, and you sleep till the morning. And the next night, I went to bed. Guriev had stripped the generator down. I was so tired I was walking into walls, and I lay down early and dropped straight off. She sang 5 verses without me. I slept the whole of it through, and that is the one night of that winter I can tell you nothing at all about. In the morning, Uncle Kostya was gone. The kitchen was warm, a pot of water on the stove, the lid pushed a little to one side the way he always pushed it. And that was when Guriev sat down on a stool in the middle of the kitchen in his quilted jacket without taking his mittens off and said quietly, looking at the floor, "She tells you, though. She's been telling you every time from the very first night." And he said the line over again. We'd heard it so many times that we had stopped hearing it at all, because it sounds like a comfort, like that warm, homely thing. Sleep easy. Someone is always awake. Someone is keeping your sleep for you. And it wasn't a comfort, it was a condition.
As long as there is somebody in the house who stays awake and listens right through till morning, she sings, and only sings. And if after the broadcast every last one of them turns in and there's nobody left, she comes herself and takes the one who is sleeping the soundest. We checked it over in silence, each of us to himself, and it all added up. The first night, Senya stayed on watch till morning, and in the morning, everyone was there. The night I was pumping fuel in the generator shed, I never lay down till morning, and in the morning, everyone was there. And on the nights when the whole station went to bed after the broadcast, you've worked it out already. The 6th verse. Sleep, my little one, I'm not alone. As long as they're listening, I'm not alone. And when they stop, I'll come myself. Someone is always awake, and you sleep till the morning.
Then the weather lifted. For the first time in 2 months, a window of 8 hours, a plane from the mainland, a landing on the fast ice, and 40 minutes walk to it through the dark with torches. Guryev got us up sometime after 2 and told us to take the papers and the instruments and nothing else. It was all settled quietly, plainly, with no words about heroism. I don't remember anybody so much as raising his voice. It was only that she wasn't in the receiver anymore. She was ours now. She belonged to the winter. Whoever had heard her was the one she sang to. And ahead of them lay 4 hours in the warm, droning belly of an aeroplane, where everybody sleeps, every last one, where it's impossible not to sleep. Guryev said, "Then one of us doesn't fly." I said, "Then it's me." Senya started to say something, and I said to him, "Go on, I'll catch you up," the way you'd say it about a kettle that's just about to boil. And he went. Guryev stood a moment at the door, nodded to me, and went out last, and the wind slammed the door behind him. I sat down in the radio room, put the headphones on, and at 3:20, I took up my watch. She sang 6 verses, the 5 old ones, word for word, and the 6th, that one. I listened without breaking off, all 40 minutes while they walked out to the fast ice, and then longer, until I heard the far-off, muffled sound the whole thing had been for, engines running up. The plane was away. All 3 of them got home. I won't try to explain to you why it works. Guryev didn't try either. I've been listening ever since. It isn't bad here, honestly. The generator hums, the tea is hot, there's the lamp over the porch, the blue drifts. The blizzard walks round about and doesn't touch me. She sings to me evenly, never forcing it, a little off-key, the way you sing to someone who is lying beside you and is nearly asleep already. 6 verses are enough for her. I have never heard a 7th, and I never will, until I fall asleep. And you, sleep. You're allowed to. The night is long, the blizzard walks round about, the stove is lit, the door is barred. Someone is always awake, and you sleep till the morning. In those parts, they tell this one quietly, under their breath, the way you tell of a thing that would have been better off never happening at all. There's nothing to raise your voice about out there, and no reason to either. Water doesn't care for loud things. Water doesn't care for anything at all, really, but silence and patience. And of those 2, it has more than you or I could ever dream of. Many years ago, when they were building a dam on the river, and the river was meant to rise and spread and stand as one great flat sea, there was still an old village down on the bed of what would become the reservoir. The houses were taken apart, log by log, the people carried off to new places, the cattle driven away, and the graveyard they left lying just as it lay. And in the middle of the village stood a church, old, whitewashed, with a tall bell tower, and they didn't pull it down. They simply waited for the water to come and take it itself, And the water came. Not all at once. Slowly, all summer long, quietly, without a single splash. It moved into the empty streets, into the abandoned gardens, through the doors left standing wide open. It climbed the walls, the carved window frames, and by autumn there was only the bell tower left standing above the flat black water. Up to its chest in the water, white, silent, like a man who has waded into a river up to his neck and for some reason stopped and is standing there still. In calm weather you can still see it today. In summer, in a dead calm, when the water lies smooth as oil and the stars are mirrored in it, out of the black depth rises that white finger with the empty little windows of the belfry, and the fishermen know. The bream bite well right by the bell tower. The water there stands deep, old, untouched by anyone. They know it, and still they try to be gone from there by nightfall. Because there's one more thing they tell in those parts. That not everyone left that village when it was being drowned. There was an old woman there, Ustinia, they called her. Old already, alone, her whole life spent at that very church, washing its floors, lighting its lamps, keeping its feast days. When the people were being carried off, they called for her too, and a cart was brought right up to her porch. But she wouldn't go. All she said was, "I was born here, and here I'll stay, and no water is going to drive me from my place." They coaxed her, a day and another, and then they gave it up. There's no shortage of lonely, stubborn old women in the villages, and you can't out-argue every one of them. And when the water rose and took the village, Ustinia was nowhere to be found. Not found alive, nor dead. Not in the new houses, not with kin, not on the road. She stayed behind with her house, under the water. And ever since, they say, when the water lies quiet and the night lies warm, from under the water, from the drowned bell tower, a bell suddenly tolls. On its own, muffled, heavy, as if through the whole weight of the black water, as if someone down there on the bottom had taken hold of the old rope and pulled. A low toll, somewhere deep beneath the water, and then silence again. And whomever that bell calls afterward by name, that one, they say, had best keep quiet, best not answer, best not be out on the water that night. But those two knew none of this. That night, a father and son went out on the water. Strangers, city people, from far off, in a car with out-of-town plates, the like of which those parts had never seen. Of Ustinia they'd heard not a whisper. None of these legends did they know. They'd come simply to fish, because someone at work had let slip that the bream ran like nowhere else by the drowned bell tower. The father was getting on in years, heavy, slow-moving. The son was grown, sturdy, strong in the hands, one of those men who is always a little anxious for his father and a little embarrassed by the anxiety. They set the rubber boat down on the water, pushed off quietly from the shore, and rowed out toward that white finger of the bell tower, which stood in the middle of the water and waited. The night was warm, one of those warm, gentle summer nights that come only a few times a season, not a breath of wind. The water lay smooth, black, warm on top, and the oar slipped into it softly, without a splash, as if into oil. It smelled of silt, of sun-warmed wood, of night flowers from the far shore. The father and son settled in right by the bell tower, cast their lines, and it grew so peaceful, so good, that they both fell silent. In a silence like that, you've no wish even to talk. The son leaned back and watched the stars, and their reflections swaying in the black water right against the side of the boat. A lap of water, soft, and then the stillness again. The father dozed over his rod. The bell tower stood close above them, huge, white, and from its empty windows came a breath of cold. The one cold thing in all that warm night, as if from in there, from the heart of the drowned stone, some other, deeper water were breathing. And it was then, toward the middle of the night, that the father raised his head. The son asked quietly, "What is it?" And the father said, "I thought I heard a bell somewhere." They both listened. Quiet. Water. Stars. And suddenly, low, muffled, from right under the bottom of the boat, from the depths, a toll. A heavy bronze toll, as if a great bell had been struck, only not struck in the air, but down there, below, under the water, and the sound came to them not through the ears, but through the water, through the hull, through the body, a low toll, somewhere deep beneath the water, and then silence again. The son started to laugh. An echo, he meant, off the dam, or a barge passing somewhere. But the laugh came out short and died on its own, because the bell tower stood above them, and there was no bell in it, no rope, nothing. Empty windows, bare stone, and the bell was tolling from below, from under the water. From that place where, beneath the black surface on the bottom, stood the drowned village, and stood the drowned house, and in it had stayed the one who would not leave. It struck again, closer, and it grew so still all around as it never grows even at night. The water went still, the stars froze in it, and in that dead silence, off the water, from somewhere near the bell tower, from its very black foot, a voice rose, a woman's, old, soft, gentle, as if calling someone in to supper. And that voice called the son by his name, called him the way only his mother had called him as a child, by his full name, his home name, his warm name, the one no one here knew him by, the one no one had called him by in a long, long time. The voice on the water knew that name. The son froze with his mouth open, and the father saw him turn slowly toward the voice, as if in a dream, already drawing breath to answer. So simply, so naturally, when you are called by name in a warm voice, in the middle of a warm night, the body itself wants to answer. I'm here. I hear you. And the father, the old, heavy, slow-moving father, was in time. He clamped his heavy hand over his son's mouth and said into his ear, with his lips alone, without a sound, "Quiet. Whatever you hear, keep quiet. Don't answer. And row for the shore, softly. Don't look back." And the son, stunned, nodded under that hand and took up the oars. And the voice on the water called again, the toll of the bell under the water. And then that old, gentle voice once more, only now it was no longer the son it called. Now it called the father by his name. And that was the worst of it. Not that it called, but the way it called. Without haste, without anger, calm and patient. The way you call your own. The way you call someone who has long been on his way to you anyhow,
and simply doesn't know it yet. For water has time. Water is in no hurry. The water had kept that old woman beneath it all these years, and it was ready to wait as long again for anyone it called. The son rode, not looking back, as he'd been told. He heard, behind him, his father breathing, hard, quick. He heard a lap of water, soft, against the side, and he heard the voice calling his father by name, gentler and gentler, closer and closer, as if it were following the boat along the very surface of the water. And then he heard his father, behind him, answer into the dark, quietly, meekly, almost with relief. "I'm coming." One word only, quiet, and a lap of water. And when the son finally turned to look, there was no one at the stern anymore. The boat had grown lighter. The water by the side rocked a little and slowly closed over and smoothed itself, the way a wake smooths itself away on the water, as if nothing had ever been there. A lap of water, soft, and then the stillness. And from under the water, muffled, heavy, somewhere far behind now, the bell struck once more. A low toll under the water, and then silence, and not another sound. The son reached the shore alone. How he reached it, he doesn't remember. He crawled out onto the sand, dragged himself well back from the water, and until first light he sat with his arms around his knees and looked at the black surface, in the middle of which the bell tower stood like a white finger, quiet, empty, as if nothing at all had happened. They searched for the father a long time, divers, grappling hooks, everything as it should be done. They didn't find him. It's deep there, the old riverbed, snags, a drowned forest, anything can happen. And so they wrote it down, drowned, and he has lived with it ever since. Getting on in years himself now, and still he lives. And the most terrible thing for him is not that the water took his father. The most terrible thing is that it called him first. It called him by his name in a warm, motherly voice before ever it called his father. And if it hadn't been for his father's hand over his mouth, if he had answered then the way his body wanted to, "I'm here," it would have been him who went under the water and not his father. He kept silent, and he stayed. His father answered and stayed there under the water with old Ustina in the drowned village where the brim bite well and where it's best not to go out by nightfall. And now, sometimes, on warm, quiet nights, somewhere far from any water at all, he wakes suddenly because he thinks he has heard it. A muffled bronze toll, as if from under the very earth, from under the floor, from the depths, and an old, gentle voice calling him by his name. And he lies in the dark, not breathing, and listens to that voice name him as warmly as ever, as unhurried as ever, as if the water in all these years had never once forgotten the name it called first and still knew how to wait. And he keeps silent. He keeps silent, and he no longer knows himself which there is more of in that silence, the fear of answering or the guilt, never yet forgiven, that back then, by the bell tower, he stayed silent and stayed alive. You're driving, the third hour past midnight, and the highway is empty. Empty the way only a winter highway is ever empty. The road between two far apart towns, when it's still 200 kilometers back to the first and 200 on to the last. And in between, nothing. Only you, the cab, the drone of the heater, and the blizzard. The blizzard comes on like a wall. Your headlights push into white, into the snow flying up to meet you, and past 10 meters, there's nothing. Only that white, spinning wall you drive into hour after hour and can never quite drive through. The wipers work across the glass, tired even, left and right. Swish, pause, swish, pause. And you keep catching yourself breathing in their rhythm, drifting towards sleep under their calm, steady stroke, holding your eyes open on nothing but stubbornness and the hot tea from the thermos that stands within reach. Inside the cab, it's warm. The heater drives dry, homely heat down at your feet. The glass fogs a little at the edges, and your breath comes off in a faint wisp of steam when you lean closer to the windshield to make out the road. You know this highway. You've driven it for years. You know there's one filling station far off, and that you just have to drive and drive to reach it, and not think and not hurry. Swish, pause, swish, and let the blizzard come. And there in that wall, off to the right, at the edge of the road, you see a figure. A man, walking along the edge of the road, his back to you, off into the dark, bent under the wind, the snow beating at his back and settling on his shoulders. Alone, on foot, out here where it's 100 kilometers to shelter in any direction. You ease off the gas, not yet decided, but your foot is already on the brake, because you can't leave a man out in a blizzard at night. He'll freeze. He'll be lost. Anyone would stop, and you stop. You open the door. You call out into the storm, "Get in, you'll freeze." And he turns, and he climbs in beside you. An ordinary man, not young, a calm face, a warm smile, as if he'd never been cold at all. "Thank you," he says softly. "Thank you for stopping. I've walked this stretch a long time." You pull away. The wipers work. Swish. Pause. Swish. The heater hums, and the two of you drive on, and it's warmer in your chest to have someone living beside you. You ask where he's come from, where he's headed, how anyone ends up out here on foot on a night like this. He answers gently, unhurried, and you don't notice at first that he hasn't really told you anything at all. "Just walking. I've not far to go." You drive on, drive on. You drive well. You drive, and little by little, you start to notice. The first thing, he knows the highway, knows it better than you. "There's a drop coming up now," he says evenly, "and a bend after it. There's always black ice there. Ease off." And sure enough, a drop and a bend and black ice. "There was a cafe standing here in summer," he says, "burned down the year before last." And you remember, there was a cafe. It burned down. You didn't remember it yourself until he said so. He names the kilometer posts before they swim up out of the blizzard, as if he's reading the road by heart. It's every turn, it's every pothole, as if he's walked it, not his first winter and not his 10th. The second thing you notice later, and it turns your stomach. Inside the cab, it's warm. The glass in front of you fogs from your breath, but in front of him, it doesn't. You breathe, a wisp of steam. He speaks, and the air before his lips is clean and dry, not a cloud of it, as if the same deep cold that's outside is inside him too. You steal a glance at him in the light of the dashboard. He's smiling, saying warm, simple words, and there's no steam. Not when he speaks, not when he's silent. You tell yourself you imagined it, that in a warm cab it's bound to be that way.
that you just didn't see clearly. It's very easy for a man to convince himself of the thing he wants to believe, especially at night, especially when someone beside him is speaking in a warm voice. Swish. Pause. Swish. "Don't be afraid," he says suddenly, as if he'd heard. "I've walked this stretch a long time. I'm used to it."
And the third thing, you lay your hand on the seat between you, reaching for the thermos, and you brush the edge of his seat. It's cold. Not warm from a man who sat on it half an hour in a hot cab. Cold, like iron in a frost, like the roadside you picked him up from. You look at his shoulders, the snow that caught on them out there, outside. It's still lying there. It hasn't melted. In the warmth, right by the heater, the snow on his shoulders lies untouched, white, dry, as if it's just as bitter cold for him in here as in the storm beyond the glass. You drive, and you try to breathe evenly. You try not to look to your right. You look at the road, at the white wall, at the wipers. Swish. Pause. Swish. And you hold on to their simple stroke like a railing, because it's the one thing in the cab that behaves the way it should. And he sits beside you, silent, smiling. And no steam comes off him, and no warmth. And the snow on his shoulders won't melt. And you no longer know who it is you're carrying through the blizzard. And, worse, you don't know which of you is carrying which. "My turn is coming up soon," he says quietly. "Just past that post there. Set me down there. And thank you. It's good that you stopped. You can't be out here alone. There's always someone walking this road." You see the post, a turnoff into nowhere, into the dark, into a field where there is no shelter and could be none. You brake. He opens the door, and the cold comes into the cab, enormous, and the blizzard. And he steps out into it lightly, calmly, as if he's stepping home. He turns back. "Drive on," he says. "It's not far for you now." And he shuts the door, and you're left alone, and your heart feels so light, so good, as if something heavy has been lifted off you. It let go. He's gone. You imagined the whole thing. And then, ahead, in the blizzard, you see lights. A filling station. Light over the pumps, warm yellow light, a sign, the little window of a cafe. People, warmth, the living. You let out all that fear in one breath. You almost laugh. You've made it. There it is, salvation. And you pull closer, closer. Swish. Pause. Swish. And you know it. It's the same filling station. Closed. Dark. You passed it hours ago, at the very start, before you'd picked anyone up. The boarded up window, the dead pumps, snow up to the doors. The light was a trick of your eyes. It isn't there. It never was. You stand before a dead filling station, and the blizzard beats at the glass, and it's still the same 200 kilometers to town that it was at the start of the night, as if you'd never driven at all, as if the highway had curled into a ring and is carrying you around by itself. And then you understand, calmly, without a cry, the way you understand a thing you've known somewhere deep down for a long time. You look at the empty seat beside you, cold. You look at your own shoulders in the mirror. There's snow on them, caught out there, outside, and it isn't melting. You lean toward the glass to make out the road. You breathe on it, and there's no steam. You pull away. You drive on. And now you know that you'll be driving always. That somewhere up ahead, in the white wall, A bent figure is trudging along the roadside again, a freezing man no one can leave behind. And you'll stop, and you'll open the door, and you'll say in a warm, calm voice, "Get in, you'll freeze. I've walked this stretch a long time." Swish. Pause. Swish. The blizzard comes on like a wall. The highway is yours now. What you are about to hear is the shift logbook of a boiler house night operator. The notebook, in its brown cover, was found much later when the town had already emptied out completely. The handwriting is even, unhurried. The man wrote without haste, as if talking to someone across a table. We'll read his entries just as they lie, night after night, taking nothing out. Night 1. Came on shift. Our town is small, closed. It isn't on any map, and I've grown so used to that I no longer remember whether it's strange or not. They shut the institute 2 winters back. They began moving the people out. They put the houses dark, one by one. But the boiler house they keep running, because if you let it go cold, the pipes burst, and then that's the end of everything. So here I am, heating empty apartments. Funny, I sit and listen to the pump droning, to the water going round the boilers, steady, warm, round and round. And it's the only living sound in the whole quarter. Around 2 in the night, the loudspeakers on the poles came alive. The old public address system, black cones on concrete masts down the street. I thought they'd lost their power years ago, and all at once they crackled, and I heard a signal. 3 short beeps, a pause, and then the voice. A calm woman's voice, an announcer's, the kind that reads out the timetable at a railway station. "Attention, shift change in Block 3 at 3 o'clock sharp. Please observe the schedule." And that was all, in silence again. They simply never switched the automatics off. A relay clicks on its timer, winding an old tape out into the emptiness. That's how I set it down, so I'd remember to tell my relief in the morning. Though to be honest, I haven't had a relief in a long while. Night 2. Again. Some time passed too. 3 short beeps, a pause, and then the voice. The same one even, almost warm. "Attention, the drill alarm is cancelled. Duty personnel are to remain at their posts." Duty personnel. That's me. One man for the whole town. I gave a wry smile into the dark and said out loud, "I'm staying. Where would I go?" And you know, it's foolish, but it made me feel easier that I'd answered someone at least. In the daytime, I asked at the administration, the last few who still hadn't left, what that broadcast was. They told me the public address line had lost its power back when the institute closed. The power taken clean off. I showed them the logbook where I'd written down the announcer's words. They looked at me in a strange sort of way, and they said, "Don't walk the streets at night. Sit in the boiler house. It's warmer there." And they said nothing more. Night 3. 3 short beeps, a pause, and then the voice. "Attention to the boiler house operator. Shift accepted at 2200 hours. No remarks." I'm writing this and my hand shakes a little. Forgive the handwriting. To the boiler house operator, to me. It knows I'm here. It knows what hour I came on. I sat and looked at the black cone beyond the window, at its rusted rim in the lamplight, and talked myself round to it being a coincidence. That boiler house operator is just an old stock phrase. They recorded 100 of them ages ago for every occasion, and the timer simply drew out the right one. It happens. It has to be so. All night I breathed slow and listened to the droning of the pump, warm, homely, round and round, and it very nearly lulled me to sleep.
Night 4. I made a point of not sleeping in the day so I wouldn't doze off at night and would catch everything exactly. And I caught it. 3 short beeps, a pause, and then the voice. Attention, Ivanov Pyotr Sergeyevich. Your shift is extended. Await further orders. That's my name. It calls me by surname, by first name, by patronymic, calmly, tenderly, the way you name one of your own, someone long known to you, out of a black cone on a pole, in a town where there's no one living but me. I went out into the street. It was very quiet and very cold. The snow squeaked, and I walked from cone to cone the whole length of the street, and in each one, as I drew near, a tape rustled faintly, as if it were turning to follow me. In some of the windows there was light. In the vacated houses, in the empty apartments, a steady yellow light was burning for people carried away 2 years ago. I stood under the lamp and understood that this whole town was working. Light, heat, a voice on schedule, a huge, warm machine turning all by itself, for a population 20 years gone. I set it down and I think, and me, am I here for someone who's gone too? Night 5. I went to the institute. In the daytime, the door was unlocked. Inside, everything stood as it had been. Desks, papers, blackboards with formulas, mugs on the windowsills, as if they'd stepped out for a minute and never come back. I found folders. I read a long time and understood little. I'm no scientist. I'm a boiler man. But one thing I did understand. The institute wasn't making weapons. Not rockets, not anything that explodes. It was studying the town itself. The whole town. The houses, the light, the pipes, the loudspeakers, and the people who lived in it, as one great installation, as an experiment. The resettlement wasn't a shutdown. The resettlement was part of the experiment. What interested them wasn't what happens while there are still people. What interested them was what happens when the people run out and the installation goes on working. The broadcast isn't broken automatics. No one forgot to switch it off. It runs exactly as it was meant to. The announcements aren't a tape on a loop. They're a schedule, a coded signal for those once written into this experiment. Shift change, roll call. It isn't about a plant. It's about people, about keeping them at their posts. And then I understood about myself. I wasn't hired here. I was assigned here. I'm no stray watchman who wandered in to warm some empty pipes. I'm the last name on the list. I too am part of the experiment. Boiler house operator, shift accepted, no remarks. Here the entry in the logbook breaks off. The next page is blank. Last entry, no date. I'm leaving. I waited for a passing truck, one hauling out the last of the scrap iron, and I left without looking back. The town fell away behind me, into the snow, into the fog, went dark in the mirror, and I thought, that's it. It's let go of me. I imagined it. Nerves, loneliness, winter. Many years have gone by. I live in an ordinary big city now, full of people, cars, noise, when no one knows me by my surname. I'd almost forgotten. Almost. And yesterday, I was standing at the railway station, waiting for a train, in the crowd, among the warm shoulders of strangers, under the dirty yellow light of the lamps, and the old loudspeaker above the ticket windows suddenly crackled. 3 short beeps. A pause. And before the voice, before a single word, I knew it in my gut, calmly, without a cry, the way you come to know a thing you've always known. The experiment didn't stay behind in the town.
A town can be resettled, put dark, wiped off the map. The experiment I carried out with me.
It isn't in the walls, and it isn't in the pipes. It's in me. And wherever I stand, in whatever crowd I warm myself, sooner or later there will be a cone on a pole, a black rusted rim in the yellow light, 3 short beeps, a pause, and the voice will call me by my surname and tell me the shift goes on. Operator at his post. No remarks. And here the notebook ends. This is my notebook. Granddad gave it to me so I wouldn't get bored, and so I'd learn to write in straight lines. He said, write down what you see, then your head will be busy and you won't be scared. So I'm writing. I've got a pencil and the stove, and Granddad is right next to me on the bench under his big coat. Outside it's raining, a little quiet rain. It's been going a long time now, and it just won't stop. Granddad says autumn is like that. You just have to wait until it dries out, and then we'll go home. Granddad and me are at the cabin. It's a little house far away in the forest, and Granddad lives in it when he goes to check his trap lines. That's where he catches little animals. We came here for lingonberries, and so Granddad could look at his little paths. And everything was fine. Only Granddad slipped on a wet log over the stream and turned his ankle. His foot swelled up like a pillow. He says, "It's nothing. I'll lie down for a day and then we'll go." But one day went by and then another, and his foot is still fat. It's a long way back, and through the mud it's even longer. So we stayed to wait. It's pretty here. The leaves are all yellow and orange, lying on the ground like a wet carpet. And when you walk on them, they don't crunch, they squelch, because there's water underneath. It smells of mushrooms and smoke. In the mornings, there's so much fog you can't even see the little shed. Just white milk all around. And the trees come out of it black and wet. I like looking out the little window at the fog. Granddad sleeps a lot. He coughs in his sleep. Night. I woke up because Granddad had got up and was standing at the window looking into the dark for a long time. I asked, "What's there, Granddad?" He said, "Sleep. It's nothing. Just stray dogs wandered in." I came over to the little window too, and it was true. At the edge of the clearing, where the dark forest starts, someone was sitting. Not close. I counted 5 of them. They sat on the wet grass all straight, like toys somebody had lined up, and they looked at our little house. Their eyes shone a tiny bit from the stove. I thought the dogs would bark or howl like the wolves in a book, but they don't make a sound. They just sit and look. Granddad pulled the little cloth across the window and took me back to bed. Day 3. The rain is still going. Granddad let me go out to get water, but not far, only to the barrel under the roof. I looked at the edge of the forest. There, where the animals sat in the night, the grass was pressed down in 5 little circles. 5 wet dents in the yellow leaves, right where they were. But they're gone. Granddad said, in the daytime they go away. He made the stove very, very hot, and he kept stroking my head and saying what a good boy I am for not being scared. And I'm really not very scared. They're far away, after all. Night. I stayed awake on purpose. I wanted to look. They came when the stove had almost burned down. They sat in the same place, only I started counting, and I thought maybe I made a mistake. There were 5 of them, and now there are 6. One new one, a bit smaller than the others, on the end. I told Granddad.
Granddad was quiet for a long time, and then he said, "You imagined it. Go to sleep." But I didn't make a mistake. I can count to 100. There are 6 of them. They sit and they don't make a sound. And from that quiet, my tummy goes all tickly and bad. I wish they would howl. Day 4. Granddad is somehow different today. He doesn't say, "We'll go tomorrow," anymore. He started teaching me. He sat me down next to him and explained for a long time. "If anything happens, son, you go down to the stream where I hurt my foot. From the stream, keep going right, downstream. The water will lead you out all by itself. It's a long walk, half a day, but don't turn away from the water, do you hear me? You'll come to a wide river, and there's Gutovka already. People, smoke from the chimneys." I asked, "And you, Granddad?" He said, "Me too, of course. Where would I go?" "I'll be right behind you. Only you remember the road, just so." I remembered it. From the stream to the right, along the water, to the smoke. Night. There are 7 of them. The circle came closer. Before, they were right by the forest, and now they've moved onto the clearing toward the middle. I can see them better. They're big and gray and wet from the rain, and their fur hangs down in icicles. They almost don't move at all. Only sometimes one of them turns an ear or blinks, and still they don't make a sound. I looked at them a long time through the crack, and I fell asleep right by the window, and Granddad carried me to the bench. I dreamed that they came right up to the porch and looked in the window, quiet, quiet, and breathed steam on the glass. But that's only a dream. Day 5. Granddad doesn't get up at all now. His foot is better, but he lies down anyway and breathes heavy, and his forehead is hot. I gave him water with lingonberries to drink. He held my hand and said very, very quietly, "You're a good boy. You're strong. You didn't forget the road?" "To the right, along the water, Granddad," I said. "To the smoke." He smiled. I chopped kindling as much as I could and carried in water. I'm the master of the house now. Outside there's white fog all day, and in the fog you can't see anything, but I know. In the daytime, they aren't there. In the daytime, they sleep somewhere in the forest. They only come in the dark. Night 8. And they're really close now, right at the edge of the garden by the old vegetable bed. So close that I can hear... No, I can't hear anything. That's the whole thing. They breathe, but there's no sound. 8 big animals sitting in a circle under our windows, the rain dripping on them, and they don't make a sound. They don't make a sound, like they're waiting for something and they know they'll get it. Granddad crawled to the window and looked at them a long time, and then he did something strange. He wasn't scared. He sort of nodded to them, quietly, to himself. And he said to me, "Lie down, little one, and whatever happens in the night, lie still and close your eyes, and in the morning, get up and go, like I taught you. Do you promise?" I promised. I didn't understand why, but I promised. This night I'm writing in the morning, because at night, I wasn't allowed. I lay with my eyes closed, like I promised, and I heard Granddad getting ready, quietly. The bench creaked. His big coat rustled. He came over, fixed my blanket, and I felt him kiss me on the top of my head, prickly, warm. And he whispered very quietly, just for me, "Don't be afraid. I'll take them away with me, far off. And you go to the river in the morning. I'm a good boy. You're a good boy." And something else, I didn't catch it. I was already floating off to sleep. I felt so warm and calm from his voice, like nothing bad could be anywhere in the whole world. The door creaked very, very quietly. A damp cold came in, and the smell of leaves. I opened one eye just a tiny crack. Granddad was walking across the clearing, straight toward them, slowly, limping on his foot, and he wasn't scared. And they stood up. All 8 at once, without a sound, rose up onto their paws, and they didn't touch him. They turned and went into the forest, there, into the dark, and Granddad went after them, behind them, like he said, behind them. And all together they melted away into the fog and into the trees, and it went completely quiet. Only the rain. I closed my eye and fell asleep because Granddad told me not to look. Morning. The fog is gone, the clearing is empty. No animals, no little circles on the grass. The rain smoothed it all away. And Granddad is gone. He went on ahead to lead the animals so it would be safe for me. I ate some bread, took my notebook, and went, like he taught me, to the stream, and from the stream to the right along the water. My feet are wet, but I walk, and the water runs along beside me and leads me. I'm writing this now at Stranger's house in Gutovka. A lady here gave me some milk, and she's crying for some reason, and the men are getting ready to go into the forest. They keep asking me about Granddad, and I tell them, he'll come. He went behind them. He led the animals away so they wouldn't follow me. He said so himself. He's clever, my Granddad. He'll come soon. I'm writing this so I won't forget how it all was, and I'll wait on the little porch. There were 5 of them, and now there are 8, and one Granddad was enough to lead them all away. So my Granddad is stronger than a whole pack. I'll wait for him here, he said, right behind. Right, officer. Only write it slow. I've no quickness left in me these days. And turn the lamp up, would you? It smokes. Ours does. The light in the village office hasn't held since that autumn. Well, ask away. The night's long. We'll manage before morning. I'll tell you it all just as it is. Name yourself. Surname, given name. Which house, he says, and the pen scratches across the paper. Kuzmin, I am. Stepan Andrich. And the house? You put the house down yourself, officer. Whichever one's left over. You came to count, I know it. Sent from the district. To count. To see if everyone's in their place. Why the papers won't add up. So step out onto the porch, look down the street. By the book, by the house register, we've 40 houses. 40 exactly. I remember it myself, from when they wrote us down. Now count the lights in the windows, where the stoves are lit, where there's a lamp. And it'll be 39. Always 39. Count till you burst. Count. Write us down fresh. 39. So one house stands empty. People left, moved on. Ordinary enough, out in a hole like this. No, officer, that's the whole of it. It isn't empty. Every soul's in place. Go round the houses tomorrow. People in every one. A stove breathing. A dog in the yard. Washing on the line. Knock at any door. They'll open. Feed you bread. All 40. But stand in the middle of the street at night and count the lights. 39. One house always dark. Only every night a different one. Last night the Prokhorovs showed no light. Tonight their lamp's burning, but the Somovs at the end have gone out. Tomorrow the Somovs will light up, and some third one will be short. Everyone's here, and the number won't come right. Always one missing, and never can you tell which till you count. What are you driving at, Kuzmin? Speak plainer. I am speaking plain, only you listen slow. It didn't start all at once, mind. In the autumn, when the fogs came down,
Our tallyman, Ignatich, God rest him, set to counting the houses, tax and to reckon the livestock. He counts 40, counts again 39, once more 40 again. By evening he's angry, says, "Are my hands full of holes or what?" Went round the houses with his book, knocking at each, ticking them off. Marked all 40, every one. And as he stepped past the edge of the village and turned to look back on it, 39 lights, one house dark. Back he goes, and that house is lit. The folk at home poured him tea. Only while he sat drinking it, at the other end, another went out. "And where's your tallyman now?" "There's no tallyman now, officer. Don't you write it down wrong. He didn't die. He didn't leave. Just his house turned out that night to be the very one, the 40th, the one that's short. Come morning they went to him, house standing, stove warm, book open on the table, tea not finished, and the man not there. And here's the strange thing. By the book his house is there, number 34, all is written. But go to count the lights, 39, and his window won't burn. Wait as long as you like. He's our shortfall now, the 40th, the one that's down in the paper, but won't come out in the count. 40 houses in the book, and only 39 lights. Kuzmin. You understand you're telling me things that don't happen. I understand, officer. That's why I don't sleep. That's why I'm glad you came. Someone from outside, at least, to count. We've stopped trusting our own selves. Here's how we count now. We gather of an evening, the whole village, out in the street, stand in a ring, hand in hand, and count off by heads. And always one short. We stand in the ring, hands locked, and count it. 39 living souls, as though a hand were holding an empty place beside its neighbor, and each one eyes the other. Is it me that's spare tonight? Is it my house standing dark? It's an uneasy thing, officer, not when someone else goes missing. When you think, what if it's me tonight? What if it's my window they can't see from the street? And here I sit, drinking tea, and don't know it. And the dogs. You say, dogs in the yards. A dog scents a stranger, it scents an empty house. True enough, officer, it scents. That's why you hear them at night, barking and howling all down the street, end to end, the whole night through. No peace. Only listen how they bark. Not at a stranger. A stranger comes, they'd all go at once, one way, toward the edge of the village. But ours bark every which way, each dog into its own patch of fog, as though at an empty place by its own fence, as though someone stood near that the master can't see, but the dog can. There's Maria, my neighbor across the way, a good woman, kept a cow. She'd come out before dawn to milk, and her dog sits by the porch and stares into the fog, won't take its eyes off. And in the fog, no one. So we thought, no one. Until Maria herself, one night, became the 40th. Come morning, the cows lowing, unmilked, the cottage warm, and the mistress not in the count. And the dog sits by the porch, and it's not growling now. Quiet, staring into the fog, as though it were seeing the mistress off. And where's Maria now? Where they all are, officer, in the book. By the book, all 40 are in place, none struck out, not a line crossed. It's only the lights that won't add up. We've even stopped crossing folk out, for who's to cross out when come morning he's here again, drinking tea, saying good day. Not dead they are, not living. A shortfall, a number that's short,
and the people all whole. Do you understand, officer? Or slower still? Let's come back to facts. Your house, the number. Mine's number 40, officer. Last in the book. The far one, hard by the edge, right up against the fog. You'll have driven by it, never noticed. Hard to see from the street, it is. Always hard to see. Tell me honest now, when you drove into the village toward evening, did you count my house? See my little light?
Or did you steer straight for the office and past?
I drove up to the office. Your house, I'll own. I don't recall. There. Don't recall. No one recalls them, the 40ths. They drive on past. And here I am, lighting the stove, warming my tea. Only from the street you can't count me. Don't be frightened, officer. Ride on. It's the very reason I offered to sit the night with you. I'm the used-to-it one. Years now I'm the far house. Years I'm the one they came up short of and found again come morning. Now I'm not in the count. Now I am again. Grown used to it. That's how, maybe, I'm the one sane man left here. I made my peace long since. Today I'm in the number. Tomorrow the shortfall. Same as all. 40 houses in the book, and only 39 lights. And one of them's mine. Or, not mine. That's as it falls tonight. Kuzmin, answer me straight. Now, this very minute. Is your window burning? You go out, officer, and look. You'd see better. Me, from in here, inside, I always see the light. The lamp smoking there, the warmth. From inside every house is bright. It's from outside you can't count it. Go out on the porch, stand in the middle of the street where I told you, and count for yourself, no hurry, every window. And tell me after, how many came out? 39? Or 40 at last? I'd dearly hear it was 40. Just once, for it to add up. Why have you gone quiet, officer? The pen's stopped. Counting? Count. I'll wait. I'm a patient man. Only mark this while you count. There were 2 of us sat here at the table by the one lamp. You and I. A record for 2. And the shadow on the wall. Look at the wall now, slow. One shadow. One shadow from the lamp. And that one pressed to the stove. Might be mine. Might be yours too. Go and tell now which of us 2 they won't count from the street. Right. Have you got it down? The name? Kuzmin, Stepan Andreich, house 40. The far one. The one that's there in the book. And the lights? 39. Only finish it yourself, officer. Which of us is missing tonight? And I'll wait. I've nowhere to hurry now.